Right, so in this video we're going to make a layered map so you can show some of your data in a more interesting, more sophisticated format. And take a base map from Google Earth. You could also get this base map from Google Maps. Here's Abu Dhabi. Just wind in to find the school. There's Bateen Airport, you can see. And there's the pitch. Here's where we are. You can see that I've now got a sort of oblique angle view, so I want to straighten this up, make sure I'm looking straight down. Next thing I'm going to do is just click right up there. I want to get north to be the top. It's going to make it a bit easier for later on. Okay, depends where you did your measurements. I'm just going to include this part of the school grounds. Depends if you made any measurements further out than that. That's up to you. Okay, so now I've got that image. What I'm doing is I'm going to take a screenshot of this. I take a screenshot by pressing function and print screen, which is in the top right hand corner on most computers. I'm then going to go to a Word document and I'm going to paste that screenshot and crop out all the parts I don't need. There we go. And I'm going to stretch this a little bit so it's big enough to be seen. Check I've got everything in. You'll notice there is a copyright down there. I'm kind of keen to keep that in, to be honest. Somebody else's work, and I should kind of acknowledge that. I'm now going to right click on there, on the image, and go down to wrap text, and I'm going to say behind the text. This makes it easier for me to move this thing around and for me to link other things on top of it, which is quite useful. Right, so now that I've got that in place, what I'm going to represent on here is is data on wind, speed and direction. The first thing I'm going to do, I've got an N up there that's still saying north. I'm just going to pop an arrow in there. So I'm going to go to insert, shapes, and an arrow. I'm going to draw an arrow pointing towards north. That arrow is almost invisible because it's so small. So I'm going to change the line size, increase the weighting on that line. Maybe I'll change the color to make it black. What do I do next? Well, let's imagine I've taken a measurement on the center circle of the football field. The wind there was blowing from the northwest, so it's toward the southeast. So I want to show that there's a northwest wind coming from that direction, going that direction, and then we'll have to represent the size of it. Insert, shapes, here's an arrow, draw that going across the pitch, make sure it's pointing to the south and east. I'm going to make that the standard length of all my arrows. I'm going to show the strength of the wind, not by length of arrow, but by thickness of arrow. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste a few of them. See, one of them's just appeared up there, which is a bit strange. So I'm going to press Ctrl C and then Ctrl V a few times, and now I've dropped a few extra arrows down. They aren't going to stay on the side, I'm just popping them there so I can use them later. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to format this so that the thickness of that shape is going to show me, whoever's looking at my map, how strong the wind was there. I'm going to do it by working with the width the point size. You can do this however you like. You need to set the scale depending on how fast the wind was blowing. I'm going to say 1 point is worth 1 meter per second. So if there was a 2 meter per second wind blowing from the northwest toward the southeast, so northwesterly 2 meter per second wind, I'll give it 2 points. If it was 4, if it was 6, and so on. So that's a 5 meter per second wind from the northwest. Of course, it depends on your units if you're using knots. It also depends on the range of data you have to show. One thing you will have to do is, once you've got this represented, let's imagine that does mean 5 meters per second, you're going to have to, so I'm going to close that. You're going to have to take a copy of one of these, drop them over there, insert a text box that's going to say key. I'm going to drop this key all the way over on this side. If I just go in, I can remove the background from my key, which I'm going to do. And then there, my arrow here is inside the key. I can now go underneath this arrow and say that this one is 5 meters per second. I wouldn't do this for every arrow, I'd maybe do it for the strongest wind and the weakest wind. Now I can say I've found that going through the tunnel, or let's say down here in the amphitheatre, the wind direction was maybe different, the wind speed may have been different. So I'll have to place this arrow in the new direction, trying to keep it the same length obviously. I'll then have to go into format shape and say, well, there was a 1 meter per second wind there. I'll then have to put other arrows in there showing how many meters per second the wind was. We have other options for ways we could represent data on a map like this. For instance, I could go to insert shape, give myself a little circle there. I could have a sliding scale of colours which represent different temperatures. So maybe this was the hottest location, it was 34 degrees, let's say. Well, I'll give that a bright red colour. However, this location over here in one of the playgrounds, well, that was a bit cooler, so I'll give that a different colour. Now I could give it a completely different colour, but what might work quite well is if I go into more fill colours, I could just work my way along one of these lines maybe, and so I'll make the next one that colour because that's a bit cooler. And if this was cooler again, I would again go to more fill colours, and there. Again, I would need a key, and I would need to add these little coloured circles with a representation of what they mean. But if you go through a kind of sliding scale from, say, red going through this turquoise colour, then it would give the viewer, the reader, your audience, give your audience an idea of the changing temperatures without constantly referring to the key. One thing you might want to do once you've finished your map, because you're going to write above it and write below it, and anytime you move this map at the bottom, the dots and the arrows will all stay in the same place. One thing you might want to do is select them all. I'm holding control here, and you can see there's a little plus on the side of my arrow, which means I'm selecting everything. I'm going to select the map at the back and my north arrow. Now I've selected all those things together. I'm going to right click, go down to group. Now that I've grouped them all together, if I move things about, they're stuck in place, which would make it easier. I guess I'd have to group my key to be stuck to it. Okay, hope that helps.